All right, here we go again. So, another build video. We've got the back panel on and glued. So, it's starting to become summer here in like the west side of the Phoenix area. So, it's getting really hot. Working in my garage is getting difficult. And I'm starting to have an issue with my glue drying way too quickly. If I apply a bead of glue, a layer of crust over the top will dry. So when I put a piece of wood down on it, it's already dried and it does not soak into or adhere to the other piece. And if I put glue on both sides, it still has a dried layer between the two layers of glue. It's becoming an issue. So what I did was used PL adhesive, which is kind of like a liquid nail. That seems to take longer to cure. Now, I have built enclosures historically with it. I am familiar with it. I don't know which is necessarily cheaper. I've been using wood glue for a lot of these projects, but I optioned for PL adhesive because I was just having a hard time, and PL seems to take long enough to set up that it gives me a window. So I had this enclosure tipped up so that this panel could go on the top. I used help to get the panel on. I've got some pieces gluing here so that this gives me a double thick, I guess, foundation for a battery bank. I've said that every time I shoot a video. Honestly, in hindsight, this little thing has been more of a nuisance. I realistically should have just cut the enclosure, not had these little side edges, kept the enclosure completely square, and then just started from scratch from inside the vehicle with some sort of a battery tray. I don't know why I thought that was such a good idea. It has some benefits, but drawbacks too. So one of the other things I'm kind of excited about is I had plywood glued on the inside so that this panel butts up against it and there's lots of glue joint, and then this panel or these panels butt up against this and there's tons of glue joint at the bottom. Overkill, but it gives me peace of mind. And I could have done it everywhere, I guess, but I didn't. But where I do it, it's like, oh, I know that's a good glue joint. It's just really fulfilling. So the back's on, so let's look at it from the front. Man, I'm super excited. It is definitely starting to come together. I went ahead and I painted the inside of it. Obviously not super well. I just painted what was easy and convenient and what I knew wasn't going to end up a glue joint. I went ahead and painted the inside of the port. I obviously didn't get everything perfect, but the hard to reach areas back there, I went ahead and painted so that when I am finishing this, I won't have to worry about that so much. I think that the fact that I have areas not painted will be fine, because once this is in the vehicle and when you're looking in it, I think it'll be dark enough in there, hopefully. And I guess if it's not, I can figure out a paintbrush on a long stick and handle the edges. But my star shape back there, I'm hoping that this design works. I've never done anything like this. Kind of janky, kind of cool. Yeah, so I'm going to flush trim all of this. I was going to leave these edges. I'm going to flush trim all of it. What else is useful for conversation? This enclosure is finished. The construction portion of it's finished. Now to flush, I gotta flush trim everything, and then I'll do a round over for, to clean it up once the glue is dried sufficiently there. I haven't pulled these screws because I want to make sure that the glue is dry. Those have some screws in them. Once the glue is dry, pull the screws. The next thing I want to do is test fit. After I flush trim everything, I want to test fit the enclosure in the vehicle. Let's see what else is useful for conversation. But yeah, the enclosure's done. So we're going to, once I do a flush trim, round over all the edges. I'll do a basic sanding. I'll apply some wood filler and then do a sanding again, look it over, make sure there's no blemishes or problems. And then what I think I'm going to do is just apply stain, just an ebony black stain. Stain's super easy to apply. It soaks in. It's kind of hard to mess up. It's relatively affordable. And I think that's what we're going to go with. And I doubt that I do any type of clear coat varnish to the enclosure, save for I might do it to the front. It's going to be the most visible, and that might be kind of cool. So something like that. Let's look at the van a little bit. I removed the wall, and here it is. At first, I was going to leave it in place and just cut a hole out and then butt the subwoofer enclosure up against it. But the more I looked at it, the longer I looked at it, the dirtier and grimier everything was, the more I thought this is just not going to work. The fiberglass job wasn't done that well. So let's talk about the vehicle. This was a work vehicle for a pool company or pool maintenance, something to that extent. And so this had been configured for that purpose. This has a spray-in liner that is definitely old and deteriorating, but it was a sprayed-in liner. This fiberglass shell was probably meant to isolate pool chemicals from the driver. And there's lots of rust, lots of corrosion, indicative of chlorine and other chemicals that might be found in a pool. One of the reasons I got this vehicle super cheap. So because of that, there's just a lot of nasty stuff that's just built up. And I thought, what I would really like to do is wall this off with plywood, make it a little bit more robust. And so this enclosure or this wall still becomes useful. So I now have functional templates. This is a nice template. That fits pretty well contoured to the vehicle. And so I have both sides, the top. All of these panels are a pretty close contour fit. So the sides, the top, there's some extra pieces that were configured in towards the floorboard. I don't think I need any of the middle section here. But these sides are valuable to me. So what I'll probably do is I'll cut them right at that corner, because this edge is valuable. I'll want to replicate that in plywood. So the way that this enclosure, I call it an enclosure, the way that this was set up, I don't know if my camera is showing or it's too bright. This kind of butts up here like this. Am I able to show that? So this piece, it's not 45, but it's at an angle relative to this and where this was at. And I think that I should just be able to duplicate that in plywood, maybe 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4. It just depends. But if I cut that, then I should be able to set the enclosure up inside, cut some templates out of wood, and mock them up and figure out dimensionally. What I don't want to do necessarily is attach anything to the vehicle that I don't have to. And so if I can put the enclosure in here and get it located where I believe it should go, then use the templates and make wood so there will be 2 pieces on either side, and then there will be the top piece, and then there are the angle pieces represented here. And I should be able to make all that out of plywood and then just attach it to the enclosure itself, so that the enclosure can kind of slide right up into place and butt up against all these edges. That is the plan. And it looks to me like it should be able to work. I should be able to put the enclosure about the front of the enclosure about halfway through the door, attach all of these pieces that I'm referring to, and then slide it up into place. And maybe I'll have some weather stripping, so that when it butts up against all of that, there's like a real seal, not like a siliconed seal, but at least a foam seal, a compressed foam seal. I'll probably have to do some trickery because there is some complicated edges that weren't very well done before. This section here was kind of a convoluted mess. In fact, there was like cardboard integrated in, and then they just did like a bed liner over the cardboard. It was not nice, not fancy. So we're gonna see if I can do something. Once this enclosure's in, I will probably put some boarding up here to go from the floorboard to just kind of make everything nice. It'll be square, but I think we can make it nice. And I'm not convinced that I'll glue a lot of that. We're probably just gonna screw it with maybe some weather stripping or something. But plywood, and I should be able to paint the plywood, whether I stain it or what, make it look nice. So yeah, I guess that's more content here. Next video, I'm hoping to have this enclosure in the vehicle and look at it, and we can start making some more decisions. While I'm recording, I've been evaluating what I think is a really good, what might be, hold on, bear with me here. What is the best way to go about a sound stage and a sound system in this vehicle? There is a lot of surface area right here, and this is a fairly useful surface. So you could put a tweeter array, you could put a little pod here and a tweeter here. Originally I thought maybe I wanted to try a 12-inch driver in the door. I don't know if you can see. I can see it, so you should be able to see it. I drew a circle. That is a hair larger than like a 10-inch diameter driver would go. So I don't think a 12 will fit. But I think a 10-inch driver will fit pretty nicely in that space. And I might be able to figure out how to use these doors and just modify, because there's a couple of contours. We've got a little bit of a angle change here. There's a little bit of some drama. I mean, this is like two separate pieces that I'll have to sort out. And then the existing speaker grill, exactly how to do this, I'm not sure. But I'd like to think that I might be able to sort out a way to leave this door integral to the build process, but just put a 10-inch. So this is the template that I used. I don't know how well you can see. A 10-inch driver is big, and it would fill that space. And Dayton Audio has two PA 10-inch drivers that are mid-bass, mid-range, somewhere around 40 hertz, 60 hertz to 3,500 hertz. I think one of the drivers is like 60, 80 hertz to about 55K. 5,500, 5.5K. So instead of a 12, what I was thinking, I think I'll just do a 10. A single 10, pretty inexpensive, like $65, under $80. And that's going to be what I think plenty of mid-bass, mid-range. I'm not completely sold on the idea of putting like powerful mid-bass drivers indoors. Probably any of you watching know that doors come with problems. It's not unsolvable, but it's not optimum. But I just don't think there's any better way in a car. So probably mid-bass, probably 10-inch driver, probably in that location there. I thought maybe I would completely take this door panel off and fabricate something out of wood, but there's just this beautiful little area right here that a 10-inch driver would just fit very well. It may not be that hard to sort out some way to integrate a 10-inch driver in there. And there's a little bit of a shield already, like it's kind of like protected. So I guess we'll see. Another thing I'm looking at here, since that window is shattered, that window's broken. I wonder if I could take these windows out and install like sheet metal or some sort of a hard plastic or something in the window's place, and then use that as the foundation for an enclosure. I'm not entirely sure how this window is actually installed here. Looking at the other one, like if this window's down, this is like a free floating piece. There isn't any structural, it's just like a rubber gasket. This window might come out super easily. It's not part of the roll-up window. If I could figure out a way to remove the windows, obviously I got to replace the window somehow, but if I could just put a piece of sheet metal in there that was the dimensions of the glass so that it would be somewhat integral and structural, I could totally build an enclosure. I could put a 6.5, 5.5. I could put a good mid-range driver, mid-bass, mid-range, and then maybe a high-frequency horn or tweeter up here, or even both integrated right here. Yeah, I'm toying with that. What else is interesting? I took this headliner out. There was a headliner. This is the headliner. There was like a tray here that was all falling apart and hanging off, and I removed that. I do predict, because of how I just think that there's going to be a ton of flex if I get this built the way that I want. And so as much as I'm not trying to do anything that's like permanently installed in the vehicle, I think we're going to end up doing a support from this area here that comes up and attaches here. What do they call that? A roof support, roof brace? There's a word for it. My brain's not working, especially when I'm recording. But I do think that that's probably going to have to happen. A roof support, roof bar. I don't know what the word is. But I do think that is on my list. Attach it, anchor it from this back here as close to, and then shoot up somewhere. Probably needs to be very close to the window. And I think that'll be good. Yeah, all right, guys. I think that's a good consumption of your time. There are worse things to brain rot about. Yeah, more to follow.